This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Grande Comore, Moheli, Ajuan, and Mayotte, administered by France but claimed by the Comoros. It has a population of around 900,000 people. Now let's go to the proverb. The tree with deep roots fears no wind. The tree with deep roots fears no wind. How would you interpret that?
Comoros, an island in the Indian Ocean. The tree with deep roots fears no wind. In my understanding, when we talk about roots, particularly in the African context of rich proverbs, roots means a person who is comfortable in their place, they are well rooted, they are well grounded, they are well prepared and well planned. Therefore, the wind, in my understanding, means troubles. It means challenges, changing dynamics in terms of what is happening in the world. And therefore, if you are well planned, well rooted, well organized, ready to face the challenges, even if challenges come, you will at least you'll have organized yourself in such a way that those kind of destabilizing factors will not affect you 100%. Yeah.
Love it.
Love it.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of the typhoon, especially in the Asian countries. And you look at the kind of buildings they have with the suspended foundation. So regardless of how heavy it would come, they would still withstand that.
It'll take a knock, but it'll not knock you down.
Yeah.
There it is. So we're looking into the thin line between loose tongues and party positions, and that it seems as though you can get away with anything. Really, we saw a time whereby you could say or do the very minimum, and there would be somebody knocking on your door to ask you a question or two. Many would argue that it's still those times. But it seems that once anybody is at the podium or with a microphone, anything then that comes out of your mouth, so long as you are you hold a position in a political party, then you can basically get away with anything. And it seems that those are the times that we've been wading into most recently. Well, let's hear from you. From the Jubilee Party, Wanja, can we or are we seeing a situation whereby, so long as I hold a party position, there's an element of power that plays there? Is it just normal politics that people say what they want, when they want, and how they want?
Thank you so much, and happy to say hello to our listeners and viewers. And also to say I'm always very happy to come to Spice because I'm a fan. I'll just start by saying that I was among the people who was very interested in the Standards headline yesterday, Rabble, rousers, where you put 3 quote-unquote dramatic photos of rabble-rousing individuals. I will just start by saying that it depends on where you sit. If you are politically dogmatic and if you are a purist, you will see it as the ill-mannered people who love drama and trouble. But for the pragmatic realist like I am, I think the SGs deserve a little bit of support for doing what they're doing. And I wish to just use one single example, the issue of the broad-based government. At the time when the broad-based, and those of us who are a bit uncomfortable with it, we call it the bread-based, at the time when they came into a very loose and amorphous agreement, the political moment at the time is that many Kenyans, including the youth, were very unhappy with the government. You remember the circumstances around the finance bill. And therefore, even if the SG of a party like ODM would have followed the party position, he's alive to the political movement. He's alive to the fact that his members are youth and they are unhappy with that position. And therefore, for me, I would say that as a person who is pragmatic, they could as well say that this one is not going well. I've been told to do this, but for me, I see it like we are not moving well. For me, I see it as political parties as room where power is contested and we don't have to agree all the time.
Does it give leeway then to be able to say what you want? Or do we say that those who speak in public are actually holding brief for the party and that they're actually putting forward a party message by what they're saying? So we can't hold them to account, but this is the spokesman or woman for the party, so we should understand where that is coming from.
Some of the things that the SGs have been told that they have said, I wonder they are not as precarious or have caused, an atomic bomb really, sometimes it is just the situation that I wish to use examples. Let's take the issue of the united opposition, because I think when you mention the individuals, that is a bit of the context. Now, if you look at an SG of a political party, you see they are also the holders of legal instruments of a political party. Now, by law, you cannot be a member of two coalitions. That is the office of the Political Parties Act, right? So as at now, a party like Jubilee Party is in Azimio by law. And therefore, when there is a lot of pressure for you to say that you are part of the united opposition, the SG who understands the law in the background knows that you cannot be a member of two coalitions at the same time. So when they say that, you know, you can't push us to be in a certain side, and assuming that we would be interested in your side, there has to be some legal issues that are well taken care of. And then some of the things, like I remember in the yesterday's standard, there was the issue of Narok, where the SG said that DCP party leader had come up with a position that they have worked together with Baba to decide the gubernatorial seat. I would say that some of these negotiated democracies and some of these local arrangements are actually detrimental to our democracy. And here is why. We are four of us here. All of us have political ambitions, and then you are told that some individuals sat somewhere and they decided is to to vie, and therefore the three of us have to stand down and forego our ambitions. So I see their roles as even being whistleblowers and saying, no, this is not right. Also just looking at where we are clash with the laws. So I see them as individuals who anticipate, and some of the things that they are doing where they are being told they are arousing, they're actually inadvertently protecting our democracy.
So, a secretary, can we able to separate an individual from their position as Secretary General and say the opinion that has been given, that is a settled opinion and not the position of the party? Yet, whatever it is they're talking about seems to be in the political sphere. Are we then saying here they were speaking their mind, but not the position of the party? Are we able to separate that?
You know, as I said, if you are a purist, the way like the media says, the person we hosted here, these are their personal views and do not necessarily reflect the views of Spice. Ideally, that's a whole disclaimer there. But really, if you agree with me, they say that personal is political. And how we are operating now, and that's why I even love the standard. You have become very bold in terms of journalism. Yes, it is a standard as a personal entity, but it's political in the sense that it is responding to the challenges of the country. So if you want to create a very thin, clear line, well, we can for the vibes. But really, if you look at some of these things, personal is political. Everything is tied together. If, for example, you say that we are not part of the united opposition now, this is because you are forcing our candidate to stand down and harass us, it means the SGs are responding to the pressures of the branch officials who are very unhappy when their candidates who have worked so hard are told to stand down. That line is not as clear and as clean as we would wish, but I would imagine that the SGs are even better placed and are at a very good vantage point to understand, because they are the main administrators of the party. Therefore, when you say that we have decided, them, they are dealing with the delicate dance and the politics of the branch chairman, 47 counties. They are dealing with special interest groups. They are dealing with the media. So some of the things they say are contextual and they are informed by many things beyond this is the party position. Remember, the politics of Kenya is very dynamic. It changes every other minute. So even their positions could change as we progress. But I see them as individuals who understand they deal with too many moving parts, and therefore sometimes when they say something, it is informed by many factors.
Okay. My question is, do Kenyans vote for individuals or for parties? And I ask this because when you talk about party allegiance and representing parties' views and your own individual views, then as a politician, you're looking at, and you said, you know, it's also about following the law and this united opposition, the idea of just, there is by law what is on paper, and therefore you can't just come out and say, okay, we're standing together with the united opposition. Before Jubilee, what was there?
Before Jubilee.
Before Jubilee Party, for example.
Well, Jubilee Party, we started as TNA.
Yes.
And then TNA got into a political coalition that formed Jubilee Alliance Party. And then in 2016, there was dissolution of 14 political parties, including URP. There was even the one who passed on from Kibwezi, alikuwa Tip Tip, and 14 others to form now Jubilee Party. So when you ask which one was there, it has been a process of forming coalitions, recreation. So yeah, that is the answer.
And so there goes my question. So do Kenyans then vote for individuals or is it parties? Because if you're sticking to the law and saying, okay, if you're representing your own personal views or it's the views of the party, Kenyans have seen time and time again politics of convenience, where if it's not convenient at the moment to join the united opposition, for example, what are the stakes? Then if the stakes are not in the party's favor or the party leader's favor or the officials in that party's, then they will not. But if they do, then they will come out and they will throw the law out of the window and they'll be like, okay, now we are working together. Do parties really care about these nitty-gritties of the laws you're suggesting?
No doubt. You see, the beauty of it is that for us to understand political parties, we have to understand them from the point of the constitution. Because before then, we've had a history of single party rule. You remember the 90s. But now the beauty of it is that now with this constitution, towards up to 2010, there was a formation of the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. So that is the registrar, telling us comply here and there. So in terms of the legal compliance, we already have a watchman who is always telling us, no, here, where are the women? So in the strictest sense of the law, we have already someone who is always pushing what. But then again, and that's why I was saying we just have to be realist, at least for a moment. In Kenya, we have 290 MPs and 47 women reps. So therefore, our parliament has around 349 plus nominated, for example. Of all the 349, only 10 MPs are independent candidates. 339 come from political parties. So to answer you is to say that Kenyans do not love individuals who are there alone.
Okay.
If that was the case, then we would have more independent candidates.
But if that was not the case, and this is why we can look at the fact that individuals are the ones who rally support around themselves to form parties. That's why you have the proliferation of political parties in the numbers that we've seen over time. Because if I am part of an outfit, which for this all intents and purposes we call a political party, and I do not like what has happened, or I am edged out for one reason or another, do I go and join another party? No. I go and I form my own. So people coalesce around the individual. How many times have we been told that in order for you to secure a nomination, you have to see someone, and usually that someone is the party leader. So whereas it could be parties that people go to, there is an individual. There's the queen bee in this whole thing, and it is an individual. We coalesce around individuals. The party just becomes a vehicle for expediency. But it is the individual that is drawing all of this attention. And that's why when we think of a party today in Kenya, we can connect it to someone. Name them. You name the party and you go directly to the party leader. Why is that? It shouldn't be. We should be able to see parties and connect them to the issues that they fight for. But we don't. In the US, for example, when you talk about things like human rights, you know which party you're talking about.
The Democrats.
When you talk about capitalism, you know which party you're talking about.
Republican.
When you talk, you know exactly what. When you're talking about conservatism, you know who you're talking about because it's ideological in nature. The people who form the party then are agents of those ideologies. It doesn't happen like that here. So people are chasing people and not the party. Now, is there a danger in that?
Well, no. Let me just take us back to our way of organizing. And by the way, this is even tied to colonialism and how they try to put us in some tribes, and we can discuss that another day. If you look at most political parties in Kenya, you can also trace them to a region. If you look at a party like Ford K, even though they are national, and I'm not talking ill of them, you can say that they are predominantly amongst the Luhya people. If you look at the party like ODM, you can say they are predominant in Nyanza, but they also have roots in Nairobi. For our party, at least for now, I can say we have in a way we are national, considering that we have a governor in Isiolo and an MP in Lamu. But then again, I think that is the reality of our political situation as at now. But I also wonder if it's a Kenyan problem per se. If you go to Uganda, for example, you don't even know the name of Bobby Wine's party, but you know Bobby Wine and whatever he's creating. Besigye has enough problems already. And even NRM truly is just Museveni's platform. If you go to CCM, for example, you can just see the tentacles of government from the top to the bottom. For me, I would say that in an ideal situation, political parties around the world should be issue-based. But in our Kenyan way and how we operate, it seems like the very nature of political organizing is winning the next election. And that's why you see people changing coalitions. ODM was CORD, and then it moves to NASA. Then we're in Azimio. Now we are in the fourth coalition, for example. Is it the way it should be? If you look at global example, the Labour, the Conservatives, and how they hold each other to account? No, it's not. But now in Kenyan position, and I remember of particular interest is actually ODM in this context, and here's why. The party leader of ODM said that Sifuna is talking my position, don't be hard on him. But then Sifuna is saying we are in opposition, but now we have a broad-based arrangement with the government. The line gets blurred by the day. So to answer you and to just talk about the politics of convenience, as Dennis and Du have asked, well, I would say that it is, if you look at it, really, there's an element of tribal and ethnic mobilization in terms of political formations. There's also coalescing around individuals. Yes, that is a fact. But you've seen parties attempting to talk about issues. Our party leader, because we painted the town red last Friday, Jubilee Party.
Red, yeah.
Yes. And our party leader attempted to get us, to remove us from this narrow way of thinking that here we are better than everybody else, to actually align and state the policies that we're able to advance, Linda Mama, issues of security, issues of education, so that now we can also start expanding our minds and having some form of higher order thinking that we are advancing issues. So to talk about political parties broadly in Kenya and in Africa, a lot is to be done.
Are we able to get away from politics that focuses on what an individual is pushing, but to what one would say a manifesto, say a Jubilee's manifesto is this? Are we able to say, as much as this is a party leader and this is what he has said, our party position based off our manifesto and the instruments of power that we have and ideologies that we have, this is what we're pushing? Because most of the time you find that what the party leader will say, that is what becomes law. Are we able, because they say the party is for the people, then are we able to say that the people, the members of Jubilee, this is what they're pushing and not what the party leader is pushing?
But even the party leader is part of the people. You know, I think one of the things...
Is it greater than the members?
Not quite. Actually, in any political party in the organogram, the toppest decision-making organ is the National
NDC.
Delegates Conference. And that's why you see most political parties are doing their National Delegates Conference. But I think we could also say that by very nature of we have a political culture where after elections, it's like political activities go down kidogo. And then now, because we are headed towards like 1.5 years to an election, you see heightened activity. Safina had their NDC, Jubilee had their NDC, which has been the most talked about so far. I know other people are planning their NDCs in coming days. So political leaders also respond to the issues that are being discussed. For example, right now in Kenya, we've seen heightened activities of the youth talking about economic marginalization. I would imagine that like any politician would not want to deviate from that position that is felt by the youth and say that the youth are now happy, everything is okay. So you've asked me, political parties, ideologies, and individuals and the Kenyans. This is an unpopular opinion that I hold I wonder if it will be highly accepted by the public. The voters and the Kenyans are not necessarily very, very innocent in this grand scheme of conversations. And here is why. You know, they are always trying to put the political leaders in a certain way. Ask me why. If you host a group of people to your meeting, before you start telling them about ideologies and things, you'll start first to panga them financially. So there is a way that it's a whole, assuming it's a bad thing that the politics do, it's an ecosystem that is enabled. It is a cycle. Do this, do that. You know, if I have an additional moment, I'll tell you about my values as a Christian. I happen to be a Christian. You know, in the good book, they talk about the parable of the seed sower. Now, the seed sower was walking there near their market, his shamba, and he was planting seeds. One fell on a fertile ground, the other one fell in a bad ground, the other one was eaten by the birds. Now, of interest to note is that seed sower had the same seed. The question was where they fell. The ones that fell near the bad, they were eaten, the others were stepped on, and the other ones did very well. The very nature of political organizing in Kenya also falls in different grounds. And for the purposes of this example, the grounds is usually the voter and the people we interact with. Sometimes they are the ones who push us, even they mislead us actually. So they are not entirely innocent, and that we are planning all seated there on the top planning bad things for them. They'll push you in a certain direction. They'll say, wewe, ujua tunachagua suti. They will make for you an alignment. We have 6 ballots. Tunataka hivi. So those debates around we are dealing with individuals and not parties do not arise, because if that is the case, then we could have examples in county assemblies and in parliaments where individuals voted for individuals and not parties. In Murang'a, for example, all the elected MCAs are from UDA except 3.
Do you think that as they do that, that they're considering the position of the party when they're making decisions, when they're voting? Are they considering the position of the party, or are they considering the desires of the political leader of the party?
But you see, politics is about campaigns and manifestos. If you come here before them and you tell them, now you have had dynasties, the rich, and now we are the hustlers. You know, if you are so juicy and dramatic, they will think that you are the one who is lifting people from the bottom to the top. How you behave after that is a whole different ball game. So the thing about politics and campaigning, that's why people campaign. It seems like you have to get the juiciest lie so that the people can love you more.
But people still go along with the lie throughout the 5 years or however long the term is going to be. I'm talking about individuals who get on the party ticket, as it were, to get to where they're going. They still continue to play the tune or dance to the tune. Because that's what I'm saying, that when we look at the very least in terms of representation at the MCA level, going to member of parliament, you will find that party positions dominate over people.
Yes, or the people who have been elected.
Yes.
Yes, and that is, yes, party positions. That's why, you see, I wonder why it looks like an entirely bad thing. Because let's take an example of the UK, for example. We have the Conservatives and the Labour. The one that is in government is the Labour for now, although they keep changing. They have a high turnover of prime ministers. But for the purposes of this example, there is a particular direction that the government, because when you are, let's say, let me even go back to Kenya. That's why we have the leader of the majority, because they are trying to advance the position of the government inside of the parliament. There is nothing abnormal about that. That is how it just works. So hardly their job is to whip them in a certain direction. I wonder if it's always the correct decision, for example, on the issue of selling Adani or the issue of the finance bill. But it just so happens that if you are the party in government, at any given time you are whipping your members to the right direction.
But I'm going back to my original point, that for people to achieve nomination, even whatever MCA, member of parliament, there is a ring that they have kissed. So when they're making decisions later on, having won a particular seat, do you really think that they're making those decisions because it's the party position, or they are remembering the ring they have kissed? That's my point.
But
They're not, you see, because if they were, they would be able to say at some point, actually, you know what, I'm a member of this party, but I feel as though this direction that we are taking is wrong. But because of the fact that they are subservient to the character who leads the party, they will say yes forever and forever, even if they disagree fundamentally with what has been said. And I think that's the problem, because if we were based on ideology, if we were based on issues, then you would see the line being told that if somebody's going to go in a particular direction against the economy, or if the decision that they've made would be a faux pas, they would then be able to say, actually, stop, guys, we can't do this, because it goes against the fundamental reason why we formed in the first place. But that's what I'm saying. Parties are being used as vehicles for individuals to get where they are going, not because they necessarily agree on a particular point.
Yeah, true in a way, but no, don't you think you could also give a few a benefit of doubt that
like
they didn't kiss a ring, they were just competent, they were
those
the
are
best.
The 10 independents that you're talking about.
No, but we've seen, for example, if you go to, without looking like I'm promoting any side, you sort of look at, let's say, Homa Bay, and you see that the governor, against very many challenges, really pulled herself by the bootstraps to actually try to, to support her county. What I'm saying, instead of focusing on painting it too negative that they had to, some people were subjected to actually competition. And let me give you a perfect example.
I'm sorry, but interestingly enough, I don't necessarily think that it's wrong. What I'm saying is, if that is the way that it's going to be operating, then call it different. Don't call it democracy, and don't call it that political parties in the original design were meant to follow ideologies and issues. Then say that Kenya is working out its political partyism in fear and trembling in another sphere. Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't work that way in Kenya. We've seen.
But democracy is work in progress. Now, we had used the example of the Democrats and the Republicans and the Labour, but the Conservative Party attained 100 years, I want to believe. I think we should also try to be contextualized. Until 1991, Kenya was a single-party democracy. We are being ruled by a dictator. It is only after 2002 where we saw a semblance of multipartyism. In a country where political parties have only been allowed to exist and set up structures for the last 20 years, we really have to give them a little benefit. Otherwise, we can't use our example to compare ourselves with. Even CCM, by the way, has been there for 60 years, if not 70. The Conservatives are over 100 years, even the Republicans. In a country where we've come from repression and oppression, in a country where Moi and Kanu are the bosses of everybody, we have seen attempts of multipartyism in Kenya for the last 24 years. We can't use that yardstick ya huko juu to compare ourselves.
But we should.
But one would argue that that yardstick is what must be put in place for us to move in the right direction. And I hear where Ndu is coming from. Because let's take, for example, the Finance Bill 2024.
Finance Bill, yes.
So we have a finance bill here that is supposed to go through public participation, that Kenyans have gone out, and I've told you rightfully, we do not support this bill. It is hurting us. Please listen to us. We're talking about millions of Kenyans against some 340 something members of parliament, right?
Yeah.
But here's a question where, because the person who rules this party has said this must pass, people have been called to, states have been told, this is the line, toe the line, ship in, ship out. You know what I mean? So at that point, when we're talking about individuals being able to stand by themselves, understanding that the power that they have been donated to them by the people, but choose to listen to one individual who has their own interest, are we able to say as parties, even if this is what the party leader is saying, I'm sorry, sir, but we serve Kenyans. And because we serve Kenyans, this is the direction we are taking. Are political parties able to go against their party leader's position?
No, in that case then, increasingly, the line between some people would say the executive is in bed with the legislature, or the line has become, there is no line anymore. No doubt that Parliament, in the strictest sense, should be independent of the judiciary. Not the judiciary and the executive. And that's why if the finance bill is brought by the executive and their budget people, the parliament should be able to do the public participation in a nice way and say, watu wamekata. But now, that is the way it should be, and that is the way it should be even by law. However, in our peculiar, there's an individual who referred to Kenya as a peculiar democracy, when he was writing about how we behave. And then now, because of our peculiar nature, you find in Kenya, for example, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Wetangula, is also a principal in the Kenya Kwanza government, therefore makes him part of the executive. The line and the lines are so blurred, even if at all they exist, and therefore it becomes very hard even for the parliament to be a watchdog of the people, because ideally the MP should never contradict the feeling of his people, because ideally he's just one person talking on behalf of many, a representative democracy. Is that what we experience or what we see? No, we have seen over and over again the Kenyans, like when the issue of the finance bill, when the president now called the parliamentarians there in the State House, and then he said he has changed his mind, what Adani, you could tell them excitedly saying, Igwe, now they were happy with him. Then I'm like, so you people are saying that you don't have even a position of your own, you just have to be at the mercy or being twisted by the executive. Is it the way it should be? No. Is it things that it's more or less like things as they are versus things as they ought to be? And that brings me to the next point. In the next election then, Kenyans should think harder around the individuals they are electing, around the political parties they are becoming friends with, but also around how they are warming up to campaign sloganeering, because so far they just fell in it on a hook and sinkers, but kimewalamba.
I have a question here. As taxpayers in this country, including yourself,
Yes.
There's an allocation of billions. I was just trying to look at the figures, the current figures. Billions every year to political parties under the Political Parties Act. Now, only parties with at least 5% of the national vote then qualify for direct funding. My question is, because we're talking about political parties, individuals in these political parties, and does money in this case then reflect actual party weight in this country, or is it simply just to reward big parties? Because there is a chase to push for expansion of parties because there is money at the end of the day. And we've seen that play out quite a number of times. And my concern then is in terms of just looking at principles, looking at smaller parties that then do not hit the 5% of the vote, but could still end up representing either the marginalized, representing PWDs, representing special groups, whatever you might call it. Should they then get proportionate support? Because they may not necessarily have the 5% and above, but in this case, it appears like we're rewarding weight, but at the expense of what? Because should then weight be measured only by votes, also by developments or contributions to a democratic space? What's your opinion?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, really. In the past, actually, a lot has changed after 2022. In the past, it was actually, you had to have a certain number of people in parliament. But now, because after 2022, there was an amendment of the Political Parties Act, and now parties, even a party with one MCA, can get a certain amount of funding. So traditionally it was before 2022, it was the ODMs and the Jubilees and the big parties that used to get money. But now I can tell you for sure that even parties that do not have a lot of legislatures actually do get funding, albeit not too many. Now, if I could just speak into it, is that traditionally parties who have more people already have a competitive advantage, and that has been there is a caucus of parties that they don't like to be called small, the parties that do not have a lot of legislatures. So they have been pushing for more budget allocation, because that in itself is part of advancing our democracy. No doubt that the more people you have a competitive advantage, you have a voice, you have more visibility. It's just a fact of having numbers. But I can tell you post 2022, Many parties, even the so-called small, have been receiving money, not a lot, which is part of growing our democracy. But then again, even issues of the parties, because even Kitambo, they used never to be funded by the government, in itself is part of Kenyans also owning political parties because they are supported by the exchequer. I might add that there is a...
But do Kenyans own these political parties in any way?
Well, members own by having activities, by having branch activities, by youth having
because the reason I ask this is, for example, the US, the biggest economy, the US taxpayers do not directly fund political parties. The political parties are funded by donations.
Yes.
The individuals who come to say, okay, you know what, we're going to help fundraise, for example. You've got private donations, public donations, fundraisings, political action committees, those that support certain causes. They're the ones that will come fund these political parties. So in Kenya, and we see what these political parties then in the US, for example, the Democrats and the Republicans, what they champion for. People understand, even us Kenyans who are not in the US, understand who are Republican president, what they represent. You look at Donald Trump, we know when he speaks, this is what he stands for. Absolutely. And this is the party's position, together with the people who back the Republicans. If it is Democrats, we know their ideals, we know their values, we know what they stand for. In Kenya, we can't confidently, if you were to do a poll and ask Kenyans, what does Jubilee really stand for? What does ODM really stand for? What does UDA, for example, stand for? And yet, taxpayers are paying billions to these political parties, but the political parties are simply outfits for the politicians. There is no general feel, at least in my opinion, I stand to be corrected, there's no general feel that these parties are representing people. They're representing a certain group of people, and therefore, from the beginning, from the party inception, to the very end, this is what this party stands for. Because what we always see is outfits changing. It's the same person changing outfits. So for political expediency and for elections, so you'll realize that, okay, so TNA changes to Jubilee. Then at some point, Jubilee might change to something else. All because you want to coalesce around individuals for political purposes. Then, if you talk about manifestos, not so many people understand or even know, okay, what is the party stand on abortion, for example? What is Jubilee stand, for example, on issues of agriculture, for example? What are the things that you're pushing for?
On the economy. In fact, we are told that there's one consultant who writes a generic manifesto that others will now then tweak and adopt for themselves.
Yeah. Actually, it is because I love to follow the UK politics and the American politics. It's actually to be admired. You'll find like if there's a minister of finance, there's a shadow minister who is always countering their policies. We have a long way to go. But if I could speak a bit about financing, that financing issue is a nightmare, and here is why. The IEBC, there was a law there was a proposal that they sent to the parliament to have something around campaign financing bill act something. So basically, the more money you have a competitive advantage in terms of voter bribery, agent bribery of everybody. So they had attempted to present a law that will cap a certain amount where you have to disclose even your source of money. I would imagine if it is affecting the people who are vying, it would also, in a way, affect the political parties. That law is yet to see the light of day, and the parliamentarians, for some reason, do not like it very much. So on the issue, for obvious reasons, but even the IBC, there's something they wrote, and they said some of the things, like in the issue of boundaries delimitation, they said there are some of the things we sent to parliament, they are yet to give us a feedback. On the issue of campaign financing, for example, there are those people who spend 50 million, there are those who spend 1 million. That area is ridden with controversies. You never know. Some people have said there was even, when they were trying to make that law, they said that even terrorism money could make its way into political organizing. So it's yet to be legislated, and for some good reason, nobody wants to go to where it is. Political parties in Kenya, honestly, require broadly to read the mood of the people, and that's why, as you are saying, they are seen to be iko kwa mfuko za watu, individual outfits. But then again, we also have to be cognizant of some of these issues that are affecting us, and that's why I said ethnic mobilization. Parties are formed. Traditionally, political organizing in Kenya was around a regional kingpin who is advancing the interests of the Maasais who have been left from the government for so long. So that will be him and his people advancing their issues. Now, us, we are the Kikuyus, we pay a lot of taxes, we need 1 man, 1 shilling, then we have our outfit. But then again, a lot is changing. In 2022, moving from the traditional political organizing of tribes, we saw a new model of social economic, the hustlers vis-a-vis the dynasties and the people with money. That was a new organizing principle. As we move forward to 2027, I anticipate issues of the youth, the old versus the young, the intergenerational tension, also forming how we organize and coalesce. In my view, I see it as some form of advancement from our tribal outfits to social economics, now issues of the youth and the affairs of the youth. Are we there yet? No. But how we do our political organizing, honestly, it's a bit dramatic. If you look at URP, for example, it was called United Republican Party. And now it is UDA, United Democratic Alliance. You ask yourself, within a period of 6 years, how did a Republican become a Democrat? You know, it doesn't tire
because
it was never meant to do that in the first place.
Nobody, I think people sit down and discuss, okay, what should we call our party?
Yes.
Come up with just a name
Nice.
for registration. And then the person who owns the party, because we've had this quite a number of, it's not necessarily a party stand. I've heard, for example, in the case of ODM, I know they're not here to defend themselves, but you will hear conversations around, if Baba says right, we go right. If Baba says we go left, it's not about if the party says. Unlike these other jurisdictions we're talking about, where it's not an individual, the position is around the party's stand. It's not around an individual. In this case, if former President Uhuru Kenyatta says it is this the direction, everybody coalesces around that direction of this one individual. It's not necessarily about the party or the delegates. Even these delegates meetings we normally do.
For example, is Donald Trump the head of the Republican Party?
Donald Trump is ahead. No.
Exactly.
No, he's not.
He stands as a candidate and goes to the party and is nominated, presents himself amongst others from within the party. But in our cases, we'll do a delegates conference meeting, but vitu zilikuwa decided kitambo.
And you see, Okari, that's where the problem is, because we say that this party belongs to the people and the members of the party. But let's start from who even calls for this delegates meeting. It is the party leader wakes up one day and decides, I want delegates meeting tomorrow. Secretary General organized because they want to call the delegates meeting. You know, we never have a situation where we know the delegates meeting has been called by the members because this is the agenda that we want to push. Most of the time, the agenda comes from the party leader because he wants to push specific agendas that he wants to pass.
Well, I think maybe that's what sets our party apart, because certainly our leader does not wake up one day and calls us tomorrow. I also think that there's something to be admired, and I know I've not paid for promotion of our party. If you look at the other parties that have had their NDCs, you've noticed all of them have said who is their presidential candidate. But in our party, you notice that we didn't talk about that. We just talked about putting our house together. In any case, we've had enough litigations and harassment by the government in the last 3 years. So in our party, just like taking best practices from the Republicans and the Conservatives, all individuals who are interested will present. No doubt that, you know, there will always be a first amongst equals. So that sets Jubilee Party apart in that aspect. But then again, I think broadly, when we're talking about political parties, and by the way, political party organizing is so important because it's the pathway to power and pathway to formation of government. I think as a country, then it is a big homework on all of us to actually see how we shall strengthen these systems. And now that we are here, the Gen Z, they said they are forming their own political party. I've been looking at them, and from how I'm seeing, they are not moving with speed as it should be, knowing where we are as a country. But I would encourage them to actually join the existing political parties and probably help in pushing for this change.
Do you think that we're going into not going into, I think we're in the throes of election season already.
We are already, yeah.
And then there are individuals who may not have shown their hand at the moment, but they would like to put themselves up for consideration for office. Do you think that they will select parties based on these plans for the future in terms of the economy, in terms of social justice and the protection of human rights and constitutionalism? Will they select parties based on those, or will they select parties as avenues, vehicles to run in an election because of the traction that a particular party has? Which do you think they're likely to select, and for what reason?
Your average candidate, like me, I'm seated there in Gatundu. The intention is to vie, and the goal is to win.
Yes.
Therefore, I'll be informed by many things. For example, my people, which party are they talking about the most?
Oh, there you go.
They will, because that will, we said we are dealing with the pragmatic realist, not the dogmatic purist. I'll be looking at which party the people love more. I'll be looking at the party that would increase my chances of winning, because even in Kenya, and we are in the media, even you people define the race. You talk about the 2-horse race. Even you can see on broad daylight which is a horse, which one is not. But then again, I would imagine that will change. But so far, really, people look at where their chances of winning are. In any case, we have seen people in parties that are well organized. You can just tell that, for example, the top 3 political parties in Kenya have almost 90% of all elected legislators. Then you make a pragmatic decision.
Okay, so it's a popularity, and that's what fuels the decision for which vehicle you will use.
It's a popularity contest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, if you take that, can we comfortably say that Kenya's politics towards also elective politics is then largely based on an individual? Remember where we started from?
Yes.
And we said, no, not necessarily because whatever, but based on what you've just said, then do we come round back to that and say, good luck, Kenyans, if the person that you select is going to then be able to meet other atoms of energy towards sorting out. But apart from that, it's on the individual whims. Can we go back and say that?
Well, it's based on the political party yet again.
Is it?
But I don't get the trick question.
No,
but
I mean, you've just said that I want to vie. The goal is to win, right? So I'm going to join the party where people are talking about it, where people are saying it has most traction. So you and your ideologies can roast for all I care at this point, because the goal is to
goal is to win.
So politics based on an individual and how they can convince, isn't it?
Politics in Kenya is the chances of you winning is directly tied to the political party that will help you. In fact, in some regions, they say that let me mention Luo Nyanza respectfully. They say that ukiwa na ticket ya ODM ni kama you are halfway past the goal, the winning post.
Yani anza kutayarisha homecoming.
Anza kutayarisha.
Uko
tu uko mbele, and that's why hata wenye wanashindanga na other parties inakaanga kama news. Inakaanga kama, more or less like the man biting the dog, but overall that is the way we move. Is it necessarily a good thing? I wonder if it's a good thing on the overall, because ideally in a pluralism country, people should be able to follow values and ideologies. But in our country, with a very young democracy, with political organizing, with political parties that were allowed to operate nicely in the last 20 years, we might not be there yet. We might not be able to compare ourselves with the conservatives. We can only take good examples from them. But that's just it. If anybody is vying with CCM in Tanzania, they have the elections in this month, October. The chances of you winning are really high. It just so happens. Yeah.
And that's why I have a problem, my taxes being deducted to pay political, to fund political parties. Because we're not there yet. So why are we funding something that's not, is like,
You're
It's like
funding the journey.
you're funding the journey.
Yeah, to where to
Buy
there.
your
Not to
own
answer.
ticket.
Not to answer. Buy
Yeah.
your own tickets,
Yeah.
get your own vehicle,
Yeah.
and start that journey. Then tutakutana katikati Mtitondei, and I'll be like, okay, you know what?
You know that
Let me
I
pay
can
the
see
rest of
watch
the
how they
way.
help you.
Yes.
that journey has no
It is-
destination, man.
It
I'm
is,
sorry, but-
democracy is work in progress. Every day we keep pushing. For example, in the 1964 parliament, we didn't have women. Tunakuja tukiendelea now, even though we might not have the right number of women as per the law, at least we have 22% of the women. It's work in progress. Every day you move like this, you move like that. You've seen how attempts to dissolve parties take away from our democracy, like the challenges we had. So it's work in progress. Sometimes we move, sometimes we get challenges.
Okay. Wanja Maina is the PWDS chairperson at the Jubilee Party, has been our guest this hour. We'll see how it goes. But if it's a work in progress, let's see. Work in progress at some point leaves the file and goes to the outstream. Let's see how it goes. Good morning and thank you for being here with us. It's 8 a.m.
Long live democracy.
All right.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.